The Dyatlov Pass incident. Imagine going on a hiking trip, thinking it will just be you, your friends, s'mores, and some good campfire songs. But that wasn't the case for the hikers of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Let's just say the great outdoors weren't too nice to them. It started when 9 hikers went into the Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia in 1959, but they never made it back from the trip. Lost hikers are normal because that's part of the risk of going to the mountains, where Mother Nature can be a bitch. But in the case of these hikers, something was really off. When rescuers found their campsite, their tent was ripped open from the inside, like someone tried to escape a horror movie. Meanwhile, their bodies were scattered, worse than a toddler's toys. Some had broken bones, but that's better than having one of your eyes gouged and getting your tongue ripped out of your body, which happened to some of the hikers. That is not what you expect from a simple camping trip. Nobody knows what happened to the hikers. It couldn't have been an avalanche because the tent was still standing, and there was no giant pile of snow. Wild animals were also ruled out because no bear or wolf targets a tongue like it was their favorite part of the turkey, and conspiracy theorists even had a field day, claiming the Soviet military was testing secret weapons, and the hikers happened to be collateral damage. Then things got even stranger when some bodies had high radiation levels, like they were swimming in a nuclear reactor. That's when people later said they saw glowing orange lights in the sky. Maybe UFOs wanted to ruin a hiking trip for fun. Whatever the case, the Soviet investigation gave the least helpful answer of all time, saying that the hikers died from an unknown compelling force. That is just a fancy way of saying something happens, but we have no clue. Decades later, researchers said a small, delayed avalanche might have caused panic, but that does not explain why some people had injuries like they got hit by a truck. The toxic lady. If you think your last relationship was toxic, that's nothing on Gloria Ramirez, the woman famously known as the Toxic Lady. And the nickname is not because she had a bad habit of ruining her relationships. Ramirez showed up at a California hospital on February 19, 1994, feeling terrible. Doctors and nurses rushed to help, but things got weird the second they got close. Her skin was so oily, it looked like the US military was about to invade her for the sake of freedom, and her breath smelled like a mix of garlic and fruit, which sounds like a bad smoothie experiment. When a nurse drew her blood, that's when the nightmare began. The blood smelled like ammonia, which is never a good sign. Worse, it had strange, oily crystals floating in it, like someone spilled glitter in the worst possible place. Then hospital staff started dropping like they were about to go for push-ups. One nurse fainted, and a doctor had trouble breathing. This forced the hospital to declare an emergency because medical staff, who battle viruses and illnesses like a walk in the park, suddenly couldn't handle the toxic lady. A few brave staff stayed behind in hazmat suits to try to save Ramirez, but after 45 minutes of CPR, she died. Unfortunately, the nightmare didn't clock out with her. A total of 23 people got sick. 5 of them had to be hospitalized. One person even had to spend weeks in intensive care. The Pollock twins. The story of the Pollock twins is a good example of how life recycles stuff in the creepiest way possible. It was in 1959 when 2 sisters, Joanna and Jacqueline Pollock, died in a car accident in England. While accidents are scary, that's not the creepy part of the story. A year after the girls died, their mother gave birth to twin girls, Gillian and Jennifer. That was when things got weird in a hair-raising way. Jennifer had a birthmark in the same spot as Jacqueline's scar. Another birthmark showed up on her waist. And guess what? Jacqueline also had the same birthmark. Either Mother Nature had started photocopying birthmarks, or something was up. But the strange part didn't stop there. The twins eventually started asking for toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline. No one had ever told them about these toys. It was as if they had a sixth sense that only detected old toys. But things got even creepier when the girls recognized places they had never been. They knew details no one had ever told them. And just to add some more weird spice to the story, the twins had a massive fear of cars. If one came too fast, they panicked. Fair enough, because cars are scary, but then they started playing a game where they acted out their sister's accident. That is not a normal childhood game, but is straight up horror movie material. Then, just as suddenly as it all started, it stopped. By the time the twins turned 5, they had forgotten everything. No more weird memories or talking about past lives, just two regular kids. It was like they went through the world's scariest toddler phase. No one could give a straight answer to the mystery behind the twins' strange behavior. Some people think it's proof of reincarnation, as if the souls of the dead children said, BRB. However, others think the parents were so traumatized from their children's death that they didn't notice they were turning Gillian and Jennifer into copy-pasted versions of Joanna and Jacqueline. The Tunguska event. In 1908, something huge exploded over a remote part of Siberia called Tunguska. It flattened about 800 square miles of forest. Around 80 million trees got knocked over like dominoes. Except it wasn't fun for the trees. People felt the shockwave hundreds of miles away. Some got thrown off their feet, but the mysterious part was that there was no crater, which is normal when something big explodes, or when a meteorite decides to crash the party. It was just pure destruction. Despite the mystery behind it, the explosion was so strong it exploded with the power of 1,000 atomic bombs. Think of it as Goku and Frieza having an epic fight that destroyed an entire forest. That's why people nearby say they saw a fireball in the sky and heard earth-shaking booms. Some people even felt the heat. But if a huge explosion caused this destruction, that doesn't explain why there was no impact zone. So when scientists investigated, they saw trees blown outward in all directions, as if nature simply decided to knock trees down without leaving a trace behind. The conclusion was that it was probably a space rock that flew in and got too hot, but before it could hit the ground, it exploded in the air, causing a huge shockwave that knocked the trees down without leaving a hole the size of New York City. But there was no clear proof because no one could find rock debris that could solve the mystery. This led to crazy stories about a tiny black hole passing through Earth, like it was in a layover before its next interstellar travel. There were even people who blamed Nikola Tesla, claiming he may have had a secret space laser. Regardless of what the theories say, it's a good thing it didn't happen in a city, or else millions would have died. If you're happy no one got hurt, please subscribe. The Green Children of Woolpit. Green was already a fashion statement hundreds of years before the Incredible Hulk made it stylish. It's all thanks to the Green Children of Woolpit and the strange story behind their sudden appearance in the 12th century. Stories say that two children, a boy and a girl, showed up out of nowhere in the English village of Woolpit. Suddenly showing up without so much as a phone call is already strange enough, but these kids upped the strangeness because of their green skin. It was not a simple kind of green that suggested they were pale and sickly. Instead, it was a full-on green color that would make goblins jealous of their skin tone. Nobody knew where they came from. They didn't speak English or anything people understood. When the villagers tried to feed them, they refused everything except raw beans. Eventually, they started eating normal food, and their green color faded. Apparently, Woolpit had the best skincare routine in medieval England. The boy didn't survive long. The girl grew up, learned English, and finally spilled the beans. She claimed they were from St. Martin's Land, where everything looked like it was stuck on permanent gloomy evening mode, and everyone was green. She claimed they were herding animals, wandered into a cave, kept walking, and somehow ended up in Woolpit in the world's worst GPS route. Historians have tried to explain this for centuries. The popular theory is that the kids had chlorosis, a disease that makes skin look green. Some think they were lost Flemish children who didn't speak English and were so malnourished their skin changed color. This theory suggests they weren't magical, just really unlucky. But there were still a lot of gaps in the story. They had no parents and didn't speak any language that came from Earth. Perhaps they weren't from Earth, and probably alien children who got lost during an interstellar family road trip. The Bridgewater Triangle. Let's say God decided to make the world a normal place one day. He took all the creepy and mysterious things in the world and dumped them all in one place. That place is called the Bridgewater Triangle, an area in Massachusetts covering around 200 square miles. What makes this place unique is that it's like a paranormal buffet. People living there have been claiming to have witnessed crazy things. UFOs flying around like they own the place. Ghosts whisper in the trees like they're spreading town gossip. And legendary creatures seem to hang out there like it's their favorite spot. While some places worldwide report strange creatures and phenomena, they're usually isolated cases. But in Bridgewater Triangle, weird stuff seems to be the norm because you can't go around without meeting someone who hasn't met Bigfoot. UFO sightings also happen so often that locals probably just roll their eyes at this point. If ghosts are more your thing, the Bridgewater Triangle has plenty. People talk about phantom hitchhikers who vanish from cars, haunted roads where strange lights appear, and even the ghost of a man who waves at drivers before disappearing. That's one way to make your morning commute more exciting, but no one knows why Bridgewater Triangle is so packed with weirdness. Some blame old curses. Some say the land has strange energy. The most popular theory is that this land used to belong to Native Americans, who were mistreated and kicked out of their crib. To ensure no one gets to live there in peace, the Native Americans cursed the land to give it the bad vibes that ghosts and weird creatures seem to like. The vanishing village of Angikuni. Imagine you're Joe LaBelle, and you visit a remote Inuit village near Angikuni Lake in Kadea, believing you'll find friendly locals, warm food, and a good spot to spend the night. Instead, you find an empty village. Either something spooky had happened, or these people had set a world record for the fastest group exit in history. Food was still in pots over dead fires. It was like someone had said, "Dinner's ready," and everyone just vanished. Personal belongings were still there. Weapons, clothes, and supplies were untouched, like a post-apocalyptic yard sale that never opened. Even sled dogs were found tied up and frozen. Whatever happened was bad enough that nobody thought about packing a bag. LaBelle panicked and ran to get help. When the Royal Canadian Mounted Police showed up, they made an even creepier discovery. The village cemetery had open graves. Not new ones, but old ones, as if the dead suddenly got up and disappeared along with the living. At that point, it was clear this was not just a case of lost hikers, because an entire village of people disappeared almost overnight. The worst part was that there were no footprints or signs of struggle. It was like the entire town, literally and figuratively, ghosted their village. Some think the Wendigo, a monster from indigenous folklore, took the villagers. The Wendigo is known for being hungry and terrifying, which is not a great combo. But others believe aliens were involved, since strange blue lights were seen in the sky. If that was the case, this might be the first recorded instance of a mass alien kidnapping, where instead of the villagers saying, "Beam me up, Scotty," they were simply teleported into alien ships without their consent. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula. If you have someone who took his hair fetish to the next level, you get the mystery Phantom Barber of Pascagoula. This guy was a different kind of creepy because, unlike regular burglars, he doesn't invade your house to steal your stuff. Instead, he steals hair. This happened in 1942 when a burglar scared the people of Pascagoula, Mississippi. He didn't take anything valuable, except for hair. That's why locals started calling him the Phantom Barber. He just cut small locks of their hair and left, like some kind of haircut fairy with zero manners. And he did so without waking anyone up. Most of his targets were young girls. But he also cut hair from a married couple, and even a soldier at a local camp. People freaked out. If someone could sneak in and give you a new hairstyle, he could do worse. Pascagoula went into full panic mode, forcing the police to patrol and homeowners to set up traps. Some people slept with weapons, but no one dared to sleep with scissors because that would mean they were basically inviting the Phantom to give them a haircut. Then things got worse. A couple was attacked in their sleep. They weren't killed, but they were beaten so badly that they probably wished they had just gotten a weird haircut instead. Around the same time, police arrested a local chemist named William Dolan, who had human hair near his house. The Kentucky Meat Shower. You've heard the saying, "It's raining cats and dogs," but you probably never heard about the time when it rained pork and beef. Well, that's the story of the Kentucky Meat Shower, when the sky suddenly forgot its job and rained meat instead of water. One day in 1876, in Bath County, Kentucky, people walked outside and saw chunks of raw meat falling like nature had decided to throw a barbecue without an invitation. It landed on fences, yards, and even people's heads. Imagine waking up, stepping outside, and seeing meat falling from the sky. That is not the kind of breakfast you want. If Jesus turned water into wine, this mysterious event turned rainwater into steak. Scientists tried to explain it, but their ideas didn't make much sense. They initially said that the meat was lung tissue from a horse or a cow, but they couldn't explain why it arrived like a disgusting weather report. One of the best theories was that vultures threw up while flying. These birds like eating so much disgusting stuff that their stomachs can't handle the meat buffet, so they sometimes decide to empty their bellies mid-air. If enough vultures did this at once, you would get a Kentucky meat shower. The problem is that vultures do not usually plan synchronized vomiting sessions. Also, the meat looked fresh. Some of it even seemed to be muscle, which is not what vultures usually go for first. The floating city of China. They say everything is made in China. Well, even mysterious cities in the sky are also being made there. Unfortunately for the Chinese, they don't even know what the floating city of China is, or where it came from. One day, people in China looked up and saw a city floating in the sky. It had skyscrapers, towers, and buildings just hanging there like someone forgot to turn off gravity. This wasn't just one person seeing things. Instead, hundreds of people in different places saw it too. Some even grabbed their phones to record it. The internet lost its mind. Some people thought it was a ghost city. Others blamed aliens because if something weird happens, aliens are always on the suspect list. A few said the world was actually a giant computer program and someone made a mistake in the code. If that's true, whoever runs this simulation probably pushed the wrong button. Scientists had a less exciting explanation. They called it a fata morgana, which sounds like a fancy pasta dish, but is actually a type of mirage. This happens when warm and cold air mix just right, bending light so objects on the ground appear in the sky. The same trick makes ships look like they're floating above water. The problem is that Fata Morgana usually stretches and distorts images. The floating city looked too clear, like someone copy-pasted it into the sky with perfect resolution. Others believed it was just a mix of weird weather, light, and overactive human brains. Your brain loves to find patterns, even when none exist. If a cloud looks like a dragon, your brain says, yes, that is a dragon. If a weird light pattern looks like a city, your brain says, yes, that is a floating city, and I need to panic. Still, that doesn't explain why thousands of people in different places saw the same pattern.